Hey everyone, how's it going? So in this video we're going to be doing a review of my 2013 Laro Pro Street 350. The Laro version of this bike was manufactured between 2011 and 2015. You can still get the new model of this, but not as a Laro. It's rebranched as a Hunter motorcycle. So the motor is a 320cc water-cooled fuel injected unit. The fuel injection comes from Delphi, and front rims are 21 inch, rears are 16 inch. Has twin discs front and rear, and really takes on that cruiser look. The weight is 184 kilograms. The wheelbase is 1660 millimeters. Now, why am I talking about this? Because I don't normally. This bike is actually physically longer wheelbase than the Harley Davidson Iron Sportster 883, and considering you've got such a tiny motor in it, you know, it's worth noting this isn't exactly a small commuter. So the bike is based on the Softail, and what I mean by that is, looks like there's no rear suspension, but there is. It's hidden underneath here, and it is only one step up from a hardtail. You will feel bumps on this. Bumps are horrible. They really jolt you. Now, what is a Laro? A Laro is just another manufacturer. These have been manufactured under quite a few names. Johnny Pag over in the United States. Hunter Motorcycles also sells this, which is quite important because it's much easier to get parts, and you can still get parts for them. Not that you've got to buy it through the dealership. You could there's actually online sellers that actually import and sell all of these parts in Australia, and will ship them pretty much everywhere else. So I do like the dash. It's quite basic, no tachometer though, which for a small capacity bike is a bit of a pain in my eyes, but each their own. It does have a fuel gauge, love a fuel gauge, and mine's this also has a temperature gauge. So we're back in the garage because I forgot to talk about the actual the controls on the bike. So unfortunately most of the writing disappeared on it. You can see that's the pass light, that's a low and high beam, indicators left and right, and you come across to the right hand side, engine kill switch, starter, and this switch here is actually for the lights, so it's off, park, and then light, or just on. So just be aware of that, because I spent some time, initially I thought with most modern bikes, when you turn it on, they're automatically on low beam. That's not the case with this one. So with older light systems, you'd go from, like, that's driving, that there's a switch when it goes to the middle does nothing, because I'm assuming that would have brought like a park light icon like you see here. Then it goes to your low and your high, which doesn't do too much. So this one has some modifications. It's a side, an aftermarket exhaust, gives it a much nicer note, which I'll show you in a moment. Also, it had a standard. These come out with a switch on the side stand that stops you from starting the bike till the side stands up, which is a pain. It means you have to leave the bike. You have to have the side stand up to let it warm up. There is a simple fix. You can actually follow the cable. So there's a rotary switch just here. Normally I've removed mine. I then followed the cable back up here, and where it just joins in to two bullet connectors, you disconnect them, join them together, and that overrides it, and it's happy to run. So the fit and finish, it holds up quite well. It's got my, your legs do rub on here. This comes up nice when it's polished. If you do leave it outdoors, it does rust quite easily, but you've got to stay on top of them, cleaning them. I don't think this was originally a dull color. I think it's faded over time, but as I said, I've had the bike for just under 9 months, and prior to that I think it spent 2 years in a garage. So It's got a key switch, but this one was damaged, so I can turn it without putting the key in it. I did buy I've bought a replacement, I just haven't put it in there yet. Now let's address the elephant in the room. It's a Chinese made motorcycle, it's over 5 years, and realistically we don't have much evidence to say Chinese bikes are a long-lasting vehicle. So when you purchase one of these, or any Chinese bike that goes past 5 years, be aware you could be the last owner. So who would be interested in one of these bikes? Who would be likely to buy one? Someone who wants to try a cruiser and doesn't want to spend a lot of money. Pretty much the rest of us want a cheap bike, and these ones are quite cheap. So another person, who else would this appeal to? Someone who likes to wrench themselves. It's quite important when you're dealing with a cheaper bike and if you're low on funds. A good way to learn is actually have a go, and you're more likely to have a go at a bike that's quite cheap, and if you get it wrong spectacularly, you haven't lost a lot of money. Electrically, it's quite a mess. You've really got to you really have to tie that up yourself. Also, just use cable ties, get it tidied up. Now, even though parts are easy to come by, getting a mechanic to work on them is a different proposition. You'll find a lot of mechanic workshops don't want to touch them. It's one, they're Chinese, and two, they know the Chinese bikes have a history of breaking down. You get one thing fixed, ride it for a little bit, something else goes wrong, it goes back there, or the parts they got weren't up to scratch. So my advice is befriend a motorcycle mechanic, have a relationship where they look after your bikes, and hopefully they'll come to the party and fix this. Now, in saying that, and this is where I think mechanics are reluctant to work on them, I replaced the stator on this one, bought a brand new stator for it, replaced it, and it still didn't charge properly. I then went and looked at other things. I replaced the regulator on it, still no luck. Further investigation found the stator the brand new stator had failed, and that's no one's fault. Like when it was tested, and I even tested it, it was showing it the proper resistance. It didn't fail till you put the bolt in it, attached it to the chassis, then the bolt was stuck too close to the installation on one of the cores on the stator, and it was shorting out. Things like this have put mechanics off working on them, and also home mechanics. It was very demoralizing. Eventually got there and got it running, but things like that can put people off them. So would I recommend one? Tough question, that one, really. If this is your sole transport, I'd say no. I'd say go out, buy a more reliable, like your Hondas, your Suzukis, your Yamahas, your Japanese made bikes. Simple fact is they're the ones that have put the most development in. They've got the money to develop their bikes for longevity, and they've got a proven track record. But saying that, this is a lot of fun. It's I said, a medium to largish type bike. It's not too heavy. It does look a bit funky. In my opinion, it is one of the better looking cruisers out there in this motor size category. Ideally, I'd prefer it to have a 500cc, but that's not the case with this. So known issues with the bike. Well, there's two big ones. The big one, and if you find this the case when you test ride it, walk away, is fourth gear jumping out under load. If the bike's had a hard life and the previous owners just really accelerated hard constantly, fourth gear is the weakest link on these things. And if you do find it's jumping out of gear, the only way to fix it is pull the motor out and strip it down, which would probably end up costing more than what the bike's actually worth. Second issue was the starter motor clutch. They had a tendency to fail, and what I mean by that is the 3 bolts that held the starter motor clutch in place didn't get enough Loctite from the factory, and they worked their way loose and ended up destroying the stator. That happened to me on this one when I was trying to get it running. So simple precaution is take the side cover off, remove the bolts, and just put some Loctite and one at a time, remove the bolt, Loctite it, put it back in, and that should fix that problem. So maintenance wise, that's another thing, quite a maintenance intensive bike. They say to change the oil every 5,000 kilometers. I'd actually do it probably every 3,000. There is no oil filter on these, so it's up to you what you do with this information. Me personally, every 3,000 I drop the oil out. It's only something like 1.8 litres, and you don't have to buy Mobil 1 or anything expensive like that. Apart from that, it is quite fun to ride. As I said, it's not a bad daily commuter. I've been commuting on it to and from work. It is fun. Position's quite comfy. Seat is I suppose it's good without being great. Due to the suspension, it does hurt your back after a while, but that's just me. I'm heavy and I'm getting older. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Hope this video was helpful. If it was, please like, share and subscribe. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next vid.
I don't think these bikes are bikes. I don't think any bike you should leave it sit around for long periods of time. One, the fuel just doesn't have won't last. It tends to go off after 6 months. And also, you're running them, they get lubrication to the parts they need. Where if it's sitting there, it just dries out. Fuel lines can gum up. Injectors could possibly gum up, or carbies definitely. So the best thing you do when you have a bike, and it's a good excuse, is to ride it. Get out there and ride it as regular as you can. I'd say at least once a fortnight should be the minimum. It's definitely not as smooth as I suppose a Japanese bike of equal age. But then again, I didn't pay Japanese bike price for it, did I now?